How we doing today? It's IB Nation Sports Talk, the special edition, Friday edition of Rapid Fire, for which we are still seeking names. And we've got a little contest going. Of course, Vince D'Addario, Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. We've see Tommy Guns and Anthony have already thrown a couple suggestions at us. We've had some other suggestions, and there is a someone locally has drone. He's an artist, and he's drawn this pictures of the Golden Dome, and so he is offering that as a. Jesse's got it, big time, Jesse. So this is what is being offered as the prize,
really,
for naming the show. Yeah, this guy is donating this as a prize for whoever wins the name competition for this show. Man. What do you think, Vince?
I think I'm being left out in the cold. That's what I think. So if I come up with the name, do I get that? Because that's sweet, man.
I know.
That'd look good in any home.
I'm telling you.
Any man cave, any living room. It could serve a lot of purposes.
Shoot.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Jesse is our court stenographer today. He is to if we get name suggestions for this show, name the show. That's your prize. I'll show you one more time. That's your prize.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's already gone. There it is. Okay, well, it's gone. So, yeah. So we'll throw that up, excuse me, later on in the show as well. Be sure to hit the like button. I know Brian and Ryan, it sounded like we're going late once again. I mean, we moved the show back 30 minutes.
Yes, we did.
And they were still butting right up against this show. We'll see if that's good for us or not, I guess. More people are joining in right now. So hit the like button and let the world know.
That's right.
How are you today, Vince?
I'm doing great. It was for lack of a better term, it was a hell of a week at my other job. And so I have to tell you that I am very happy that it's Friday and that I get to hang out with the two of you because my week was very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately for you, Vince, it is getting towards that time for high school students. So I just feel like the eagerness and the urge to want to do bad things is at an all-time high.
Yes, I would say pretty much from Thanksgiving through Christmas or to Christmas, it has been. I was given a piece of advice: expect the worst every day you walk in, and my expectations have been exceeded pretty much daily. So.
The wild ones just keep getting wilder. Interesting. I didn't realize that Thanksgiving to Christmas is that time.
It is very interesting. And I got to send you something, Jesse, and so you'll understand how my week was.
Okay.
All right.
See if I can find that real quick.
Well, let's get started right now. Speaking of the last week being interesting, really we can as far as Notre Dame is concerned, it goes beyond that. So fill in the blank with this first question to start us off today. Notre Dame's last 2 weeks have been blank.
Nuts. And I at first I wanted to say expected, but it's really not expected because some of the decommitments or potential decommitments, however you want to phrase it, have been surprising to me because Notre Dame has done a very good job of putting this class together. And to be honest with you, even with the defection of Keon Keeley and Davis Swain, and I guess potentially Bowen, still a really, really good class. And people need to understand that. It's still a really, really good class. But it is still a little bit surprising the way things have kind of gone down over the last couple of weeks. Definitely surprising, that Drew Pyne left when he left and some of the things that have gone on in that direction. It's also, frankly, it's surprising that Tyler Buckner was going to be available in this game.
True.
That's surprising to me. I was not anticipating that. So yeah, I mean, it's been surprising kind of how things have gone over the last couple of weeks. No doubt about it.
Yeah. So for me, I'm just going to stick to the week the last 2 weeks have been eventful. And obviously when you have, your starting quarterback leave, you have a quarterback, a quarterback that's been hurt now getting back into the mix of things. You have some other transfer portal guys leave. You've had some flip of some commitments. But my thing is with the commitments is it's always going to be expected that you're going to lose some guys right at the deadline, just like they'll probably gain maybe a guy or two here at the deadline. And so I guess it's not to like, discount the fact that you don't want to lose anyone, and potentially, obviously with Bowen being, what at least what I've seen, a top 10 recruit in the entire country, and obviously a big 5-star recruit. You don't want to lose those sort of guys at the end of the day. So it's eventful, and it's going to get even more eventful in the next, couple of days as well. So be interesting to see how everything shakes out. But I think at the end of the day, Notre Dame will end up being kind of net neutral, right? I think they might lose someone, but they might pick up someone. So it'll be closer to neutral than I think what people will realize.
Well, I mean, like, you talk about like you expect to lose some recruits and then you're going to pick some up. You're right. But like if you lose Peyton Bowen, it's a little bit like, let's go back to the late 80s when I was in high school and the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue was still a thing. It's like you think you've got a date with Elle McPherson and then you end up with, your run of the mill, whoever from science class. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, Shirley, how you doing? It's like there's a big difference there from one to the next. In this whole thing, it's just like, it's been like 1985 and there's a National Enquirer dedicated to Notre Dame or something. It's like remember you used to go to the grocery store and you'd see the National Enquirer headlines there, and it's like aliens abduct Notre Dame quarterback, parents say he was snatched in the night, friends say he had an alien obsession all along, or like high school quarterback star or high school football star beguiled by Oklahoma cult, was it for love or money? It's just like crazy splash headlines, but it's all happened in the last 2 weeks. And it started exactly 2 weeks ago today with the whole Drew Pyne thing. And it's just nuts. And, 99% of Notre Dame football fans are on the ledge of a building right now. And I guess if I'm staying with my 1980s metaphor, it's like, you've got Martin Riggs up there on the roof with you and he's going to handcuff himself to you. And you're both just going to go off together.
Ooh, look at
is
you.
what it's like right now. So it's just like, it's one thing when a guy like Drew Pyne makes that kind of decision. That was shocking. That was a jolt to the system. I would never have envisioned that happening like the way it did. We've talked about it, but you could see him maybe packing up after the spring and saying, okay, you brought in a transfer quarterback. I competed for the job. Now I'm going to go someplace else. Sayonara. He's probably got his degree at that point. He doesn't at this point. But then like all this stuff with, and I mean, we can kind of jump into this conversation here if you want. I know a lot of people have been having it, and I'm not sure exactly, how much Brian has touched on it, but obviously NIL is being used for things other than what it was intended for.
Sure.
And that's why we are where we are right now. So it's not just like you're losing a big, highly touted 5-star recruit and potentially a 4-star guy as well, who is also very highly touted. Obviously, you're losing them because the system changed, because the NCAA was essentially too gutless to regulate it to begin with.
I completely agree with that. It's very frustrating, and people need to understand that Notre Dame is not going to be in the business of writing blank checks to kids. So it's never going to happen. So, I mean, you're either going to have to change your allegiance to a different team if that's what you want, or you're going to have to just understand that Notre Dame is not going to participate in that. Now, here's the other thing. Who's the biggest culprit of handing out NIL money? It's Texas A&M, right? There's a reason that they lead all schools in transfers right now.
They're already leaving.
Portal.
That's right.
So I guess the way I'm looking at it is, Dante Moore, for example, he commits to Oregon because of the NIL deal, and he's already looking at a different school. He hasn't even signed on the dotted line yet. There's going to be way, way, way less loyalty to a school that these guys are going to, because they're just going for the money and they're not going to stick around. So I feel more comfortable if guys are willing to sign on the dotted line for Notre Dame, they're going to stick around unless Notre Dame tells them that they don't want them anymore. They're going to stick around. I would rather have that than sign these guys, give away all this money, and then just have them leave when at the first sign of adversity, because that's what's going to happen to a lot of these kids. And so sign me up for being a Notre Dame fan right now. That's where I'm at. That's what I believe. And if we lose a couple of these high profile guys, so be it. I guarantee you a bunch of these guys are going to end up in the transfer portal at some point anyway.
Well, that still doesn't help Notre Dame get closer to national championships if that's the goal. I'm obviously not blaming Marcus Freeman, for losing out on a guy if money is the reason, and everything points to money being the reason. I mean, there's only so much you can do, and they're out there, they're still plugging away, like they're still fighting. I said last night with Brian, to use another movie analogy, this is like an Independence Day when Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum went up into the mothership there, and they dock and all that stuff, and they're like hiding, and they're trying to instill the virus. It's like the last ditch, last resort thing. Marcus Freeman going into Peyton Bowen's house last night, it ended up working, so can Marcus Freeman somehow rescue this? I mean, if he does, he's the savior of saviors basically at this point, but it's just not looking good right now.
There's a couple of things that I kind of wanted to talk about, and you brought up that comment that said the NCAA didn't see this coming. I completely think the NCAA saw this coming, and they are completely okay with how this is blowing up in everyone's faces because of it's like, okay, you guys want these things, and then we're going to give it to you, but you're going to have to deal with the repercussions of what else can come with it. And I know there should be some sort of regulation, but I just don't think that the NCAA ultimately cares right now that things are going on. And another thing I wanted to kind of touch on is, these guys can take the upfront, bling bling cash in your face, but you can get an NIL deal and you can get an education from Notre Dame, and those two combined could potentially, outweigh, whatever sum of money that someone's going to give you in the long term, of course, right? Like upfront, it's not going to be the same. But to me, I think that's got to be what Marcus Freeman is trying to sell these guys on is, yes, these schools are giving you all this cash up front, but I want you to think of the bigger picture and the longevity of the rest of your life and what Notre Dame can set up for you in the future.
Yeah. The thing about the NCAA and whether or not they saw this coming, the NCAA had this shoved down their throat because for years and years and years, this was an issue that was brought up, and they did things, like make kids, who, there was like, well, my memory is basically my point is, the NCAA never wanted this. And because state legislators, started basically enacting their own laws, the NCAA was forced to go along with this because it started to go through, the legal system is where it was all heading. They never got ahead of it. Like they, again, like there were plenty of times where they had a chance to address this, but because they just turned and looked the other way and said, this is not going to happen on our watch. And you can squarely blame Mark Emmert for this because, he just basically took fat paychecks and nobody knows exactly what the guy did, but they had it forced down their throat. They had no way to regulate any of it. And here we are a year and a half later. This is what we're left with basically because the NCAA never wanted this. And this was the thing that I talked about all along when they were proposing this and leading up to this. How are you going to regulate it when it comes to recruiting? And nobody has any idea how to regulate it right now. And I think it was Tommy that said, Brian hasn't tweeted about a decommitment. You're right. Technically, there is no decommitment right now. But again, Marcus Freeman is still working on trying to keep Peyton Bowen somehow. And, doing the best that he can. I basically, based on everything we're hearing, I would think that if the flip comes, it's going to happen on signing day. You're going to see a cap or, whatever at a little ceremony, so that he can put the, pick up the hat or whatever and put it on his head and do that kind of stuff. I'm thinking that that's probably when we're going to see it at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be, just prepare yourself for disappointment. That way, if something happens that's good, then that's great. And we can all be excited about that. But just prepare yourself for disappointment. Unfortunately, $2 million, and that's the reported amount, right? That's a lot of money. And I get that. It's a lot of money to turn down. It's ridiculous that they're offering kids this kind of money, but that's a lot of money. And that's life-changing money. That's generational money, if I'm being honest. If somebody offered me a $2 million check, I'd have a hard time turning it down. So I get it. I don't have to like it, but I do get it. And, I agree with Crystal that says, the problem is if we don't get them out of high school, then if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're not going to get them unless they're a grad transfer because of everything that Notre Dame is and what they stand for. You're right. You're not. And that's part of the problem, right? The issue is teams with deep pockets who are willing to write those checks are going to get scattered big names. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep them. So where do they go the second time around? That's a big question mark because Ohio State's not giving the big empty checks, I don't think. Michigan's not giving the big empty checks or, the blank checks. There's a lot of schools out there that aren't doing that, right? And they're still having success. That's 50% of the people that are in the Final Four right now. So, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes and what this looks like. We still have such a small sample size of NIL kids to see where they're going. I mean, look at Quinn Ewers, for example. He's all about NIL. He's already on his second school,
right?
So I mean, again, that's just an example. And then you got all the Texas A&M kids that are in the portal. So I don't know. It just changes everything about college football, and not really for the better, in my opinion.
Yeah. Brent says you can't give a high school player $1 million. Well, technically, you're still not supposed to give them $1 million.
Not like they're doing it. I mean, you're not like they're doing it.
They found a way to skirt the system.
Right.
Yeah, is
absolutely.
And that's why no one's going to admit to it up front, because you're not supposed to have it until you're on campus, actually a member of the team. And, Notre Dame has a pretty good NIL system in place from, based on everything that we hear, but they're never going to resort to this, to use, this kind of money, especially as an enticement and inducement to get the kid on campus before they've ever stepped foot on campus and signed the dotted line.
Notre Dame is treating NIL the way it is supposed to be. You earn your NIL endorsements through your play and through the way, what you do at Notre Dame, and I have no problem with that. I'm sorry. I have no problem with that. Earn what you get, earn what you get.
Yep. All right. How about someone who's been in school for a few years? Michael Mayer. And Todd McShay of ESPN is currently projecting Mayer to be the first pass catcher selected in the NFL draft. McShay's current mock has Mayer picked ahead of all of the wide receivers in the 2023 draft. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what chance do you give that to actually happen?
I guess I'll start first on this one. I give this on a scale of 1 to 10. Probably a 7 out of 10. I feel very solid about Michael Mayer and his ability as a pass catcher. It's just, unfortunately, you can only make so many projections when it comes to draft order. And it seems like things often kind of get, blown up on the actual night of the draft. But a lot of what I was looking at is, what's that potential order going to look like? It looks like Houston's going to end up with the first pick. The Bears will be up there. I believe Seattle will be up there via the pick that they got for Russell Wilson. The Cardinals will be up there. The Eagles will be up there from a pick that they got with New Orleans, the Colts, the Falcons, the Raiders. So I started looking at, what kind of fit he would be on any of those teams. And you can start to get rid of, the Falcons because they have Pitts. You could get rid of Chicago because they recently, drafted Kmet. So I think that there's a definite possibility. And I think, a dark horse would be actually potentially the Eagles up there, which is so painful to say, maybe even the Colts, the Raiders. So I could see him going up there. It just all depends, I guess. It's too early to ultimately say for me.
Just for clarification's sake, McShay has him going at number 12 to Houston. And I think it's because Houston has multiple picks there in the first round. So he's got him going to Houston with their second pick of the first round. Because like you said, they're going to end up picking first overall.
I was actually going to put it at a 7 as well, because when I look at because it's a twofold situation. It's fit for Michael Mayer on the team, but then it's also, what does the wide receiver class look like? And I'm looking at the wide receivers that are draft eligible, the ones that have declared or whatever. And to be honest with you, none of the, you got the kid from TCU, obviously, Quentin Johnston,
right?
You got Jordan Addison, who is okay. You got the kid from Washington. You got the kid from Tennessee.
Jalen Hyatt. Yeah.
I just, none of these guys jump out to me and say, that kid's a lock to be a really good NFL player. You know what I mean? And Michael Mayer is a lock at being a good NFL player. And then you also look at, okay, you've got Travis Kelce, for example. You've got Rob Gronkowski. You've got some of these tight ends that you almost base your entire offense around, and the mismatches at tight end are so much better than the mismatches at wide receiver. I just think you can do more with Michael Mayer. So when you look at the draft class for the wide receivers and you look at Michael Mayer, I'm sorry. I think Michael Mayer is going to be the first one off the board.
I put this at a 7 as well, like the chances that it will actually happen. And first and foremost, I love Michael Mayer. And, like McShay in his evaluation talks about how Mayer is basically already, he looks like a third-year NFL veteran playing college football, against college guys. And, he likes his physicality, likes his instincts in the pass game. But he does say he lacks elite speed. And I mean, if there's a knock on Michael Mayer, I think that's it. It's the speed.
Okay.
Like if you start comparing them to the Kelce's and Gronkowski's, he's a gear or two lower than those guys. And, again, like that doesn't mean he can't be a great NFL tight end, or at least a really good NFL tight end, like Jesse, like our guy, Jason Witten, was not a blazer by any means, but like, Michael Mayer, like Jason Witten, Mayer knows how to get open. Those are some of the things that McShay is talking about. So I think, just what you guys are talking about, it's about fit. It's about what else these teams have around him. Do they already have like a set of receivers? Like if I'm looking at Houston and I'm going to draft a quarterback, number one, potentially overall, which you would expect that they're going to do, they don't have a lot of receivers stacked up right now. So I would think that they would pair up a receiver with a quarterback before they would pair up a tight end, because there's a lot of things that Michael Mayer is going to do well once he gets to the combine here in a couple of months. I'm really curious to see what that 40 time looks like, because like it or not, that 40 time, that's what sticks in these guys' minds, and how much is that 40 time going to affect him? I still think he's going to be a first round guy someplace, but I would have a hard time seeing him go ahead of all these other wide receivers that are being talked about right now.
I think the biggest thing that Michael Mayer has going for him compared to the rest of the class is that he can provide you almost an extra offensive lineman with his blocking ability. So if he can find a fit with a team like Indianapolis or Tennessee, or someone who uses kind of more of that power run scheme, I think that that's going to be more of a fit compared to like a Kansas City team or just teams that are essentially going to spread you out. Because I agree with what you said. Kelce, he's not like Kelce, and Mayer's biggest difficulty is how is he going to be able to break people off in open space? Like how is he going to be able to cut off cornerbacks and create enough separation at the NFL level? I think that's the only thing that knocks him, but he can make up for that with a scheme that is, has him in more inline blocking and more of like a power run scheme type situation.
Yeah.
Play action, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There you go.
I still like Michael Mayer against the vast majority of DBs in this league.
No, I do too. I just think that's his, if he has a defect, that's what it's going to be, is, being able to constantly break people off with his route running skills.
Right. But if he can sit at those chains and pick up first downs all day, again, like a guy like Witten used to do. I mean, the guy, again, not a blazing type guy, but he's going to end up.
Sometimes all it is you just sit your big body down in front of a small DB right at the
knows
sticks.
How to find the openings. He has kind of that sixth sense. He has that feel of where he's supposed to be. Now, again, like when you look at this year's offense, the way he was, defenses tried to take him out, but sometimes his quarterback, didn't recognize that or just didn't care. It can become an issue. But again, when you get to the next level and you've got a couple, receivers around you, and you've got an NFL quarterback who hopefully knows what he's doing, that's the other thing too, is like, it's going to be better for him if he falls a little bit. It's like the money's always a little bit better, obviously, the higher you get picked. But
the second contract, though.
Yeah, but once you get picked around 15th, in that 15 to 20, you're going to be with a little bit better team, and you've probably got a little bit better quarterback to throw you the football. All right. Which is the worse rule? NFL roughing the passer or college football targeting?
This one, while they are both terrible, terrible, and I could make a case going either direction, it's got to be the targeting rule in college football because it is so. I think you could go from coach to coach to coach to coach, or even referee to referee, and you're going to get a different explanation on what it's supposed to be and how to enforce it and what it looks like live. That's the problem. The NFL issue is that they're just trying to protect quarterbacks and they don't want anybody to get hurt, so it's ridiculous. The college rule is nobody knows what it is, and that's a huge problem. So it's got to be the college one for me.
I like Vince. I think both are pretty horrible, but I would say that what makes targeting even harder is it affects other positions outside of the quarterback, right? And so you see it on you see more of it because there's more of a chance that it can happen. And I think that the hardest part about targeting in college is, and we've seen it before, these guys get kicked out and then have to sit out half a game. And we're still sitting there wondering, is that even a targeting call? And I think that's what also, contributes to to that rule not being good, is that guys have to, sit out time and potentially it's just a solid, hard, clean tackle. And so when your team gets penalized and then you also, have to lose a half of football, I think that's what tips the scale for me. And like Vince said, it just seems like a lot of the NFL roughing the passer is protecting the quarterback. And I'm assuming this stems from Bosa's hit last night on Geno on the pick six, where it's just like, what is the guy supposed to do? Just pick him up
Pick
and
six
gently,
got overturned. Yeah,
gently set him on the ground, or what? And that's the thing, is they're both just so bad. And so there needs to be some sort of clarity and groundwork that everyone is on an equal understanding of what needs to be, called.
Yeah, I mean, they basically decided they don't want defenders bringing their body weight down on top of quarterbacks. Essentially, because, like in part because you don't want a guy, like an injury like Tyler Buckner had, where like if the body weight is coming down and a quarterback happens to be falling down on his shoulder, boom, all of a sudden the shoulder pops. Obviously, they want to protect quarterbacks because those are the biggest investment on the field. Those are the stars of the game, and they want their stars out there every week. I mean, it all started with the Tom Brady knee injury. What's that been? 15, 16 years ago. And that's where we are right now. It's all about protecting quarterbacks. I get it. I agree with what Jesse said. And this is what I've said all along with targeting. The ejection that comes with it makes it the worst rule because, one, it is called so inconsistently by college officials. Even with the aid of replay, they still don't know what they're looking at and what they're calling, it seems like, half the time. And then you get an ejection along with it. My point all along is, if you want to have a targeting penalty in college, have a targeting penalty. The first time in a game, it is just a 15-yard penalty. It is a typical personal foul the first time you do it in a game. If the same player does it a second time in a game, then it's an ejection, if they feel like an ejection has to be part of it. I just feel like it is too steep for something that is so subjective from official to official and replay booth to replay booth. It's that's why, to me, it's the worst rule.
JD Bertrand missed like 2 straight games because of those ridiculous penalties. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's not a good system at all, and the penalty is way too harsh. So it's like a combination of the two. You know what I mean? It's just the replays never agree with what's happening on the field, and you can't even get, like, at least in the NFL, when they're going to a replay, you can pretty much agree that they get it right, and it's going to be what it is. When replay goes for college, when it goes to replay, it's like flip a coin. I mean, you never know what's going to happen here.
There's too much subjectivity. It's it's like they're replacing your. It's not supposed to be a subjective thing. When whatever gets replayed in the booth, it's supposed to be black and white. Either it clearly is or it clearly isn't. But in college, any replay, and that's that's why I'd like to see the replay system reduced and just basically go to what the NFL has for the replay system as well. You shouldn't have so many replays in college when they don't know how to use the system that they have.
Why would that be difficult? They literally have an example. Hey, NFL, can you send us the rules for replay?
Right.
We'd like to institute that at the college level. Thanks, man. Like, why is that difficult? It's
I know.
not difficult. Terrible. I'll even throw in the money for the red hankies. Like, let's go. Let's get this thing right.
And Vince is serious if he's offering to pay for anything. So
what I'm saying.
All right, fill in the blank. It's blank that Drew Brees has been hired as an interim assistant coach for Purdue's Citrus Bowl against LSU.
Vince doesn't like this, but I think it's a match made in heaven for someone like Drew Brees. Obviously, he went there. He's post-retirement. He can't figure out what he wants to do. He's already, given up on the broadcasting gig. I think this is a very good segue to see if Drew Brees, potentially might want to get into coaching and at what level that he wants to do it. And what better way to do it at your alma mater when the team got kind of left high and dry before their bowl game, and you could be an interim head coach. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's a great fit. And I think it allows Drew Brees to kind of figure out, again, what he potentially might want to do going forward. I think this could spark a big interest in for Drew Brees.
Jesse Stiers.
Listen, I know that Purdue's a rival and all that stuff. And
that has nothing to do with it.
And Drew Brees is it's a Hall of Fame quarterback we're talking about here.
It's a PR stunt.
This is a
legacy.
PR
stunt,
no,
Jesse.
It's not a
Come
PR stunt.
They're letting him recruit as well.
Yes,
he's allowed to recruit.
Coach,
I mean, you talk about an inducement. They're letting a future Hall of Famer join the staff on an interim basis, and he gets to recruit.
I'm sorry,
Explain
you don't get to cut your teeth at the Division I Big Ten level to see if you want to coach.
He's earned that.
That is insulting to the rest of us who are coaching and doing our thing. We had to cut our teeth coaching freshman football or little league or whatever. He doesn't earn it. He's a good player. He's earned to be in the Hall of Fame. He hasn't earned being a coach. Those are two completely different scenarios. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. I would be more upset if Purdue is actually good at football, and they're not going to be anytime soon. But here's the problem. He's not a coach. He's a dad. He's an average commentator, and he's a really good quarterback. You're not.
No, he's a below average commentator.
Okay, well, all right, fair enough. But you're not a coach. You don't get to cut your teeth for a month. Hey, you know what? I hope he's a really, really good coach, and they beat the crap out of LSU. Okay, but it's a PR stunt, 100%, 100%.
I think it's a PR stunt, but I think, again, it allows Drew Brees. I think that we could seriously see him coach again after this. I will retort and retract my statements if he just comes in and never coaches again. And then I would agree it was just a huge PR stunt.
I think it's a big PR stunt as well. I mean, what else has Purdue got going for them? Nothing, right? I mean, their quarterback, their Brom left. He goes to Louisville. Their quarterback's declared for the NFL draft.
You're talking about the Big Ten West champions here. They got something going for them.
You're right.
Yeah, they're good.
Exactly right.
They're good.
But I guess I should back off because they're going to be allowed to take their big drum to their Citrus Bowl game, and they'll be able to bang their drum all day because obviously that's what's the most important when it comes to football games. As long as you're allowed to bang your drum, your world is in a good place, I guess. So they've got Drew Brees and they've got their drum. Good luck in the Citrus Bowl. I agree with Vince. I think it's all just a publicity stunt.
I would be absolutely shocked if he's on the staff for the fall of 23. Absolutely shocked. And to be honest with you, if I'm the head coach, the new head coach at Purdue, I don't even know what his name is. They haven't been following it that closely. If I'm the new head coach at Purdue, I'm going to be pretty upset, to be honest with you, if I'm forced to keep him on as the quarterback's coach or whatever role that he has, because I want somebody that can coach. I don't know if he can coach or not. I don't know.
So Jeff Saturday was a PR.
What if he ends up being a decent coach? Maybe
I
don't know.
Maybe he is.
He seems like a bored rich guy to me. I mean, broadcasting didn't work out, and now it's like, hey.
Exactly. If he wants to cut his teeth being the head coach of a high school or something, go for it, man. See if you like it.
Yeah.
But, it's ridiculous.
At least Jeff Saturday cut his teeth doing that before he skirted everyone.
How's that worked out for the Colts? Great story, I guess, but that's a PR stunt too. And
But everybody was fired up when they beat the Raiders, man.
Yeah, they
beat
were.
the Raiders.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. Okay, so the University of California Board of Regents has officially approved UCLA's move to the Big Ten. I don't know if you heard, but like this was kind of up in the air for a while, whether it was actually going to happen. But one of the conditions in the approval of UCLA's move is a so-called Berkeley tax, where UCLA would have to contribute between $2 million and $10 million of its Big Ten TV revenue annually to support fellow system member Cal's athletic department. So UCLA gets to go, but you get to, you've got to pay a tax every year to help pay Cal's athletic department budget, apparently. So the board is going to have the authority to determine what the exact amount is after the Pac-12 finalizes its media deal. So what do you guys think of this?
I think there's a lot of Cal Berkeley people on the board. That's what I think, because this is ridiculous. I mean, I guess I get it, but I don't understand. Well, I guess what I don't understand is how those two things go together, right? I guess they're saying the Pac-12 media deal is going to be much less without UCLA and USC, so they're not going to get as much money for UC Berkeley as they would have if they were actually in the Pac-12 when they come up for their next rights deal.
Well,
Maybe that's the angle that they're taking.
Because like right now they're in the Pac-12 together, and so whatever the Pac-12 was getting, like UCLA and Cal each get this share, but apparently that money goes into a pool to help the entire Cal system, which is like 16 members apparently, because the vote was 11-5. There were 5 who voted against it, and I would imagine UCLA was one of them.
Yeah, but the money only goes to Berkeley; it doesn't go to anywhere else. Because that makes it even more interesting. That makes it even more interesting, to be honest with you. You know what? I don't. I think it's a little petty. I think it's a little ridiculous. If they want to go be a part of a different conference that they have no business being in, let them go. I mean, that's fine. I think that to pay another school is very odd. I just think that's an odd thing to come up with. I'm not a fan of it, to be honest with you. And I have no love lost for UCLA or USC or anybody out there, but I just think that's a little ridiculous.
Vince hates everybody. Vince is just like an equal opportunity hater. It's true when it comes down to it.
Very few people that I enjoy.
I think
Drew Brees should go coach at Cal. That would be the perfect place for him.
Yeah, ultimately, I think what this has to do with is the UC, how do I put it? The all of the California is upset that they want to take, their business elsewhere, right? Like you're essentially saying you have this kind of West Coast business and now you're moving it to the Midwest centralized location in the United States. And that's basically what it says. It sounds like is, okay, if you're going to take away from our kind of quote unquote California money, that we want kind of the repercussions or the difference to be paid, because you're not just going to, leave the West Coast and take all this money with you too, and leave us in the dust, like where you're just, no longer any good X or something like that. So to me, it just sounds like they are kind of butthurt about the fact that they're going to be taking this money and attention away from the West Coast and shifting it more towards the Central America area.
Yeah, got to come up with that Midwest money. I think it's a very strange arrangement. It's like you never heard of anything like this with any of these other, schools have obviously shifted conferences and everything else all the time. It's like
there's a lot of public schools out there that are in conferences and they're not all in the same conference. Right. I don't know. It just seems odd to me. I don't know. They're exploiting the situation.
Okay, so we've got a few bonus questions that have popped up throughout the course of the show. Brent started off, Al Washington. This was when we were talking about the recruiting stuff, I think. He says, Al Washington, his D-line regressed. He lost Keeley, Davis Swain, Lacey, etc. Would you summarize Washington as a definite coach on the early hot seat? What do you think about this, Vince?
Who's the etc.? Because you named off everybody I think that he's lost. But anyway. I think that there's some pressure on him, for sure. I think he's underachieved at this point, both on the field and off the field as far as recruiting is concerned. And, I think that if you haven't performed, then I hate the word hot seat. Like, that's not my favorite term on the planet, but he's going to have to step his game up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And if he doesn't, then Marcus Freeman needs to go find somebody else that will. I mean, again, it's nothing against Al Washington, but I don't think he's lived up to the billing, if I'm being honest. And so of all the assistant coaches on the staff right now, I think he is the one with the most pressure on him moving forward. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of Vince is saying there. But for me, I just don't think anyone deserves to be on the hot seat after just kind of one season. If this is a reoccurring theme throughout this next season, and we continue maybe to not continue, but we see kind of, decline in play in a defensive line that's been a very strong unit for Notre Dame the past, however many years, I then think that there is a potential that he could be on the hot seat. But of all the coaches out there right now, I think that he does have the biggest question mark next to his name in terms of, what he's doing recruiting, what he's going to be able to do performance-wise now that some of these, Foskey's going to be gone, Lacey's gone, some of these guys who have been around for a while, you're going to start seeing new blood in there. And it all kind of depends, for me at least, how the new blood performs before I come away with any takeaway about Mr. Washington.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely on the fan hot seat, and it doesn't help when you've got this other stuff circulating around,
Sure.
and then it just, makes you kind of lament the Keeley stuff even more, and then you go, oh, Lacey too, and, Swain, all that.
It adds up.
Thing. So,
I mean, it adds up. Everything in
Yeah.
a vacuum is one thing, but when you've got all of these different things, and I think you and I talked about it on Monday, but the defensive lines play on the field outside of like Isaiah Foskey and maybe Jason Adamalola wasn't fantastic, right? Riley Mills, I think, underachieved this year. I think you could say that about some other guys. I think as a whole, I wasn't all that impressed with the chat with the defensive line room. I just wasn't.
No, I wasn't either.
And both of those guys are going to be gone next year. So the pressure's going to be on with
who's going to be gone next year?
Foskey and Adamalola.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I missed who you were referring to there.
It's okay.
No, I mean, one thing we're going to find out about Marcus Freeman, and I wouldn't expect him to just, you had a bad year, now you're gone, that kind of thing. But you're absolutely right. Washington's going to have to up his game in both recruiting and on the field with, the technical stuff that he is teaching those defensive linemen, because I agree there was some underachievement this year. But we're going, like Del Alexander's name got brought up. Jeff Quinn has been brought up before, not in this specific chat, but those are like the two who we saw who were allowed to underperform for more than just a year.
Too long.
And the former head coach would not make a move. And so that's going to be kind of interesting to watch as we evaluate Marcus Freeman going forward as well.
Yeah.
Does he pull the trigger on some things like this sooner than maybe his predecessor did?
And I wouldn't pull the trigger this offseason. I wouldn't.
Oh, I wouldn't.
I would give him another year for sure. Let's see how the recruiting cycle goes. Let's see how 23 goes. When you don't have Foskey and Adamalola to kind of headline the whole thing, right? Let's see how things go. Now, if it stays the way it is, well, then we have a hard discussion, but I would not put him out after 1 year.
Right. Keith asks, can Notre Dame pull scholarships of players on the team already, if not contributing before they graduate because of getting down to 85? Technically, yes, they can, but Notre Dame will never do that. They will. What, Vince?
No, go ahead.
I thought you were going to disagree there, but yeah.
No, I'm going to let you finish, and then I'm going to have a counterpoint.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's basically not what Notre Dame does. They don't pull scholarships, across the board, in whatever sport it happens to be. But like the conversations that Marcus Freeman has, like the blunt conversations about this is where you are going forward, that is to nudge some of these guys so that potentially scholarships don't have to be pulled, so they make the decision on their own.
And I've heard that there's going to be some opportunities for some other players within the university as well, where they might not be part of the football team. We'll see how things shake out.
Like you keep your scholarship, or you keep, whatever
Right.
academic
And it's
aid.
whispers. Like, I don't know if any of it is actually true.
Right.
But the bottom line is they're not going to kick him out of school for not being a good football player.
Right.
Right. So that's the bottom line. And I think that's what Keith is probably getting at. But they are going to find ways to get under the 85 or under 86, I should say, with the guys that they want to be there.
Right.
How about that?
We should go ahead and address this. David got in late, and I'm sure some other people did as well. Is Bowen gone yet? No, there is no decommitment as of right now, but everything we're hearing is it is still going to be an uphill climb for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame to be able to keep Peyton Bowen as a part of this class.
That's what it sounds like. It's unfortunate, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, right. And again, I don't think, and I could be completely wrong on this, but just based on the way as tight-lipped as everyone has been about this, it just feels like Wednesday's going to roll around.
Yeah.
There's going to be some ceremony at his school. He'll have the hats out there or, whatever, and he'll put on, whichever hat that he decides to put on at that point. Brent wants to know, speaking of Bertrand, and we were talking about Bertrand earlier, who are the 3 starting linebackers in 2023 for Notre Dame?
Colley, Sneed, Maris.
Really?
Yep. There's no reason that Maris is out there all this time without – he's building up his experience. As bad as he's been in some situations, I think that he's building they like a lot about him, and I think that he's going to be able to instinctually play better next season because of the experience that he's getting. And then I think Sneed and Colley just have to be out there just because of, who they are, their speed, what they bring to the table. I don't think you could go another season without those guys being on the field.
That's very interesting. So you said Sneed, Colley, and Marist. Those are the 3?
That's what my 3 would be.
Okay. I would say Sneed, Colley, and JD, if I'm being honest. And if it's not JD, I think that Junior deserves an opportunity in the middle. I've heard that he's practicing at Viper. I do not like that in any way, but I'm not coaching him up every day. I would be willing to just go with the 3 young guys, take your lumps, and because I think those lumps would create some pretty darn good linebacker play moving forward. I would go with those 3 just based on athletic ability and another year within the program and everything else. And then you've got, JD's going to play, Kaiser's going to play, and Marist is going to play, but they're not. I wouldn't start them.
Yeah, you said Sneed, Colley, Bertrand. That's who I would go with. There's no way JD Bertrand's not going to start next year. You hear everything Al Golden says about him. You can see deficiencies. Al Golden loves him. I just don't see it happening. He's not. They would not keep him around if he was not going to be a starter next year. No. I just don't see it. And I think Sneed, like if he can turn into, a rover, like that's what his body is built to do. That kind of thing. Be a rover. Kind of in that Owusu Koromoa kind of mold, much more athletic than what they've had in the last couple of years since Owusu Koromoa has been gone. I just, the other 2, I don't know exactly, I guess, they would be depth. I tend to agree with you. Like Leofau's skill set seems to be more along the lines of that Viper where like you're rushing off the edge, but you can also drop into coverage a little bit, play a little bit of space and just not get burned so much with your run fits and stuff like that because the instinct
less to read.
Yeah, exactly.
Less to read. Less is more with Marist. I think he can be very effective for you on the team, but it's less is more, man. And I think you can put, somebody else there like a Jalen Sneed, who I think you're going to get more production out of.
Spark was asking about Tyson Ford. I believe his name was brought up. Hang on, I've got my notebook right here. I think that was a name Al Golden mentioned the other day. Let me double check this.
I mean, he was a true freshman, obviously, and it's very difficult to play as a true freshman on either side of the line.
He did. He mentioned Sneed, Ford, and Anye specifically the other day when he was talking about young guys, and like kind of making cases for themselves and stuff like
Nice.
that. But the other thing that he said was, like those 4 practices that they had last week going into finals, that was basically going to be the big opportunity for these young guys to make their case, because now you're out of finals, you're transitioning into South Carolina
Game prep.
Gator Bowl prep now. So those young guys had their chance to kind of show whether or not, maybe they could earn some more reps, I think, in this game prep a little bit. But once it gets to game prep time, it's game prep time.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but I think Tyson Ford is still, someone definitely to keep an eye on going forward. Still
Absolutely.
A young guy, so.
There's going to be plenty of opportunity for Tyson Ford to be an integral part in this defensive line. No doubt about that.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that is it for tonight. The special rapid fire. We only got a couple of name suggestions tonight. The Heat Zone and Friday IB Bullets. I saw Tommy ask earlier if Tom Noy answered his question last night. I don't remember what the question was and whether or not he answered it. But excuse me, if you have any, Jesse, can you put that screen back up once again so we can show that what do you call this thing that we're looking at here?
It's a print.
It's a print.
There you go. I know there's a fancy name for it. Print.
It's a print. It's a print.
So if you pick the name that we end up going with on this show, you will win this fancy Golden Dome print, which was
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's really good looking. Painted by one of the listeners to this show.
I like Anthony's. He got one in. I wrote it down. Friday Night Heat. That kind of sounds pretty ringy.
Friday Night
catchy
Heat
to me. I like that one.
All right. Well, good stuff, Friday Night Heat crew. Where we go with that? Oh, yeah, there was one more question. I forgot. We'll get this one real quick.
Do it.
College football reporter Nicole Auerbach says she once watched the late Mike Leach put ice in his beer. Have either of you ever thrown ice cubes in your beer?
Never have, never will. Won't be doing it later tonight. Won't be doing it the day after that day. There's never going to be ice cubes in my beer. I either pour the beer cold and drink it in time that it's no longer has, the chance to be warm, or have a chilled glass. So other than that, I'm not going with ice in my beer.
I never have. But I'm trying to put myself in a situation where I've got a warm one. What would I do? Am I gonna waste it, or am I gonna throw a couple of cubes in there and cool it up again? And you don't have the chilled mug at your go-to. You don't have it. It's not available. So what do? I don't know. I'm not opposed to it, but then you start thinking about watered down. You better drink that thing fast so that the cubes aren't melting. That's the thing.
The first time I ever saw someone do this, I saw Muffet McGraw do it someplace back on the East Coast. Yes, I saw Muffet put a couple ice, and I looked at that and I was like, what is she doing? But it's just what you're talking about right there. If you're out in an establishment and they give you, like a glass that feels like it just got out of 100-degree, dishwasher, and so the glass is hot and the beer is not particularly cold. I like my beverage as cold as possible.
Absolutely.
And so if it's too warm and I've got my glass of water there, I'll throw a couple cubes in there and kind of stir it up a little bit.
So you've
not
done
afraid
it.
to do it.
I
have done it before.
Okay.
Have done it. For that very reason. The beer is too warm and I want it at least a little bit colder.
You're not going to pour it out.
Right.
That's alcohol abuse. You're not going to pour it out.
Apparently this is a big thing in Southeast Asia. Like, this is a very common thing in Southeast Asia. Beer
Really?
or ice in your beer.
Beer on ice, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with Jay Wick, though. A little rum and Coke with the ice. I will take that over a beer any day of the week. Not a beer guy.
See, I'm not a rum guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a rum guy by any means. And I'm not much of a, like, as far as alcohol, it's tequila and vodka are, the two that I would.
Look at you. I love a rum and Coke all day.
Look at Jesse. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. I've jotted down a few of these name suggestions tonight. I appreciate you bringing them in. Be sure to hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already done it, or just do it again if it lets you. Jameson on ice and Guinness.
There we go.
Together? Is that like
no?
Okay.
David knows.
Oh, so it's
David
like
knows.
Jameson on ice in one hand, Guinness in the other hand. Is that
Double
kind of
fist.
the thing?
Yeah, the Guinness becomes water. Just a dark water.
All right. Interesting. I think I'd still just rather have a couple ice cubes in my Yingling.
I can't do the dark beers, man. It just doesn't. Can't do it.
Dark beers. That's where the flavor is, Vince. It's where the flavor is.
I know the flavor of beer. I can't. I'm not a big fan of beer. So
yeah, well, I guess if you don't like
when you enhance the flavor of
beer,
coffee, it makes it even worse because I hate coffee too. So.
All right, everybody, have a good weekend. We'll be back Monday, guys. Appreciate it as always. I will talk to you later. IB Nation Sports Talk.